Greetings, settlers. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Farthest Frontier 1.0. Episode 2, Building a Town Center. And we are just about done surviving our first winter. So, this is a little tutorial about policies. And if you click on your town hall and go to the last tab down here, this is your policies. So we can have a policy that crop yields are increased, but fertility reduction is increased as well. Or that production speed is increased, but injuries and happiness is lowered. There's another one, rationing. They eat less food, but happiness is reduced a lot. Minutemen, lookout towers have additional guards, but the upkeep is doubled. Or munitions distribution. Hunters and guards can use crossbow. Otherwise, it's militia only. None of those policies particularly appeal to me. Almost all the policies have like some sort of trade-off. And we just generated another knowledge point. So let's take a look at some of our options here. So you've got wood lore, which allows you to gather quicker or gather more resources in one go. We've got venting chambers, producing smoked meat and fish quicker. We've got iron shares, which increases the farm work speed. We've got sustainable farming. Fertility loss is reduced from planting crops. Sustainable fishing. Fish replenish in the ponds faster. We've got taxation, which increases the taxes for homes near markets. We've got hygiene, reduces the chance for diseases and outbreaks. We've got defensive barricades, which increases the health for stockyards, storehouses, and town centers. Which, when you get raided by enemies, they go for your stockyards, storehouses, and town centers. It's also worth noting that these are research trees. So, for instance, you cannot get reinforced palisades without defensive barricades tier 2. So if you want one of the advanced resources, like let's say we want to be able to make armor, a better example would be if we want to make deep mines. If we want to mine the deep spots, we would need to get everything leading up to deep mines. Quarry, which quarry requires metallurgy, and also tread wheel, crane, and so on and so forth. So plan accordingly because the trees can require a lot of things. So we have militia. The villagers do more damage. We've got spotters, so the lookout tower and view distance is increased. Shoes last longer. Stone cutting is quicker. Firewood, pottery, linen, and soap is produced faster. And then this one is trees cut quicker. Of all of these options, what I'm going to plan on doing is taxation. And the reason for this is really early on, your gold income sucks. And taxation will help to at least provide a little bit of gold income once you have your first market to be able to pay for civil service stuff like entertainment, religion, troops, etc. And we'll have another knowledge point in about 5 months. All right, the Forager hut is built, and I'm going to change its work spot to right here. So it has access to nuts, berries, and fruit. And in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prioritize nuts and greens over berries because nuts and greens last longer in our stockpiles than berries. But of course, they're seasonal. The other thing I can do is to go over to these blueberry bushes and physically relocate them adjacent to the Forager hut. Oh, I shouldn't relocate them there because that's outside of the sphere of influence. So let's cancel that one and relocate them where they'll actually be gathered. So let's put them right there. And right there. All right, the materials to be able to build our next few structures are getting there. One of the issues that I have is the prioritized rock harvests left over from needing to quickly construct the well were left there, meaning that people were not collecting, they weren't collecting wood as much. So I just changed those priorities. I'm also going to move the storage cart to right in between the hunter and the forager so that we can store food in the storage cart, at least for now, until we have the root cellar going. Actually, you know what? We're going to have the root cellar done soon enough that I don't think that will be much of an issue. Ooh, willow bushes. Perfect. So we're going to want a forager out there to be able to make baskets. And I now have 5 months of food stores. The tutorial wants me to get at least 4. So the plan is to keep up with our food production and then start building houses once the root cellar is built. So the root cellar is now my highest priority building so that we can have a good place to store food, which will reduce our spoilage. In this case, I think this hunter managed to kill all of the deer in the local area. So I'm going to change their hunting grounds to up here because there are deer up there as well. They were a little overeager and just murdered them all. There we go. Blueberry bush. And we'll be moving the other one adjacent as well. A neat little trick. Easily overlooked that blueberries can be moved. Alright, at this very moment, we have a sort of a lack of firewood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect the stone mining by holding left shift and having the filter be only for stones, telling my people to no longer collect stones at all so that we start chopping trees down because we don't have any logs for the buildings and we don't have any logs for the firewood, which is a bit of an issue because we don't have any more structures yet to build that require stone, so I don't really need to be collecting stone at the moment. Now, another thing we might want to do is not to harvest the trees too close to the foraging zones because the plants around here rely on the trees. And if you harvest the trees out from the foraging zones, it will reduce the yields you can get from foraging. Foraging, just in general, is a pretty early game way to provide food that you quickly outgrow because it doesn't scale well. The same is somewhat true for hunting, although less true for hunting, because hunting you can is still a reliable source of meat and hides, even kind of late game. But as you want to become more agrarian, your reliance upon foraging decreases a lot more. So now the root cellar is getting built. And once the root cellar is built, I'm going to move my storage cart over to the root cellar.
What needs doing?
And the reason for this is I'm going to tell my storage cart to no longer store food. Well, actually, there's no food in it, so it doesn't even matter. But the reason is the storage cart is a poor repository for food because food spoils in it. And it would be way better to store the food in the root cellar to reduce the rate of spoilage. And once we get our smokehouse going, and the smokehouse will allow us to smoke the meat and fish so that it doesn't spoil so quickly, we can then start building the remaining houses required for the tutorial. But speaking of which, it wouldn't be a terrible idea for me to get maybe another fishing shack. I'll plop it somewhat close to the last one. And its work area should not overlap. And that's also true for things like wells as well. I know the text is really small, but this says nearby well penalty. Basically, if a bunch of wells overlapping, it draws from the same water table, and there's a penalty as a result. So spacing your wells out, as you can see, there's a box around here. Spacing your wells out so they don't overlap is ideal. And the same is true for fishing zones, hunting zones, etc., etc. All right, so just exactly like I did last time, we're going to get taxation again. Because once we have the additional people and houses, the plan is to try to get a market pretty quickly thereafter, so that we can start building up gold taxes and be able to support a growing village. Smokehouse is almost done. Just 4 more wood delivery. 3 of it's coming from Chloe over here. And 1 from Wendland. So we are just about done with the Smokehouse. Alright. That means it's probably a pretty good time to... What is this, sumac? Probably pretty good time to start building the new houses. And I'm going to build them just right up against the coast. There's really no other structures that I'm going to want between the plains here and the lakes. So leaving room for fishing shacks, but then immediately building houses. So the idea here is that this whole zone here will be a housing zone at some point. All drawn off the same markets and with, you know, all of the civil services centered around there. So the current priority is build new houses and move the town or the houses to new location. Sounds about right. So we don't necessarily want any homelessness. When you move a house, it displaces the people that are in that house. So we're going to want to build new houses and then move shelters like a few at a time, so that it's not like a mass exodus of people in their homes. Making sure that we always house some. So moving them one at a time will avoid evicting too many at once. Where will the farmers and farms be? They'll be over where the fertility zones are highest, over to the east. Farming is farming takes a fair bit of investment time, so farming is not something I'm going to jump into early. For that reason. And we just had a new villager immigrate. So now we're up to the starting population that we had prior to the boar and wolf death. Okay, firewood's looking good. Our logs are still pretty low, but that's because we've just been investing the logs into moving the homes. So we haven't really built up much of a supply. And here is the second fishing shack. All right, adjusting its zone. So as you can see, if you overlap there, you have like no productivity because it's already claimed by another facility. So I'm going to put it just up the way a little bit. So 2 fishing shacks, 1 hunter shack, and 1 forager shack. And you can also see like what they've produced, what they have in storage, etc., etc. So it gives you a pretty good overview of like how productive they've been. Do seasons of weather influence villager health? Yes. Mostly cold exposure. Now, as soon as these 2 houses are done, I will fulfill the requirement up here. Alright, let's take a look at our smokehouse. So our smokehouse is doing a pretty good job. If we look at our overlay, we have at least 20 smoked meats, which will keep a lot better. And pretty soon... Where'd my wagon go? It's hard to spot the wagon sometimes. Now, the other thing we're going to want around here is a new well. So I'll put the well lakeside. I don't really care about displacing the sumac, because the wells provide water for the villagers, but it also helps you fight fires. So it's important to have all of your houses under the influence of a well, or they'll become stricken with dehydration eventually. So the next knowledge point, that is a good question of what I'm going to invest that in now that we have taxes times 2. And this is a chart of your year over year, the report for the last 12 months. So food produced, consumed, spoiled, imported, exported, stolen, and wildlife eaten. The produce that you've made, and you can track each individual one. So for instance, if we want to track firewood, like here is our firewood produced and consumed, and it gives you all the information. And then also population changes. So we've had 1 birth, 1 immigration, so our population went up by 2. And we're nearly done with the housing project, which will allow us to move beyond this more people wish to join your settlement. So this is house number 5. And then we need 9 wood for house number 6. So unlike last winter, which we had like basically just 1 month of food, we're a little bit better prepared this winter with stockpiled berries, some stockpiled smoked fish, and smoked meats. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than what it was. So here's the next generated knowledge point. So if we do want to do farming, sustainable farming would be pretty good. The thing is, we're not going to be farming for a little bit, so that's not immediately useful. We could do hygiene to try to reduce outbreaks. I would say that's a pretty good early pick because we are potentially going to have people get sick immediately, and I don't really have a useful way to cure them. And then if you're lacking firewood, production logistics works out pretty well because it leads to production management, which increases the speed of a lot of the higher, heavier industries. And then if wood is a problem, cast iron blades for faster tree felling leads to quicker work for plank production. And planks is something you need a hell of a lot of, and then eventually it leads to woodworking, which is an even better firewood splitter. So that's got some advantages as well. I think in this case, I'm going to go with the hygiene so that we can avoid any additional pop loss due to illness. And we have another one immigrate. So we're up to 13. Diliana just brought in even more smoked meats. And just produced a batch. And let's prioritize the shelter build site. And then also allow some of the trees down here. Now, I'm a little wary of going too far south because I know there's a wolf den there. So I don't want to go all the way down there and get nabbed by wolves. So I'll be careful about how I designate resources to be harvested towards the south. And it seems to me like these guys are addicted to mining, so I'm just going to disallow the stone again, because they just keep doing it high priority over everything else. Which is why we haven't yet built the well or the mine, or the house, rather. I think this is the most stockpiled food we've had in queue. 6 months, half a year of food stored. Early game, that's a pretty good milestone to try to keep it around that level. Unfortunately, the meat smoker is not moving the meat into the root cellar as efficiently or as frequently as I would hope, but as long as it doesn't cause a ton of spoilage, I guess that's fine. Oh, and there we go. We got dysentery. So, a big way to fight illness early on that is not so expensive is just produce soaps. And soaps can be produced from tallow from hunting, which is a lot cheaper than like actually paying for proper medicine. So there we go. We've got year 3. We've got the houses that this demanded. So 6 houses, yes, and 4 months supply of food, yes. So this should take off in just a second here. And with that in mind, I'm going to just build some additional houses anyway, because I don't necessarily need to wait for the game to tell me to do that. And the well got built. Awesome. So now there's a supply of water for the people that live shoreside. Alright, so some new things that we could potentially build. As far as food production goes, I don't think we're quite ready for crop fields. There is a saw pit that would be very handy to have. So I'm going to put the saw pit right here next to the stockyard. The stockyard is where we're going to primarily stock wood. And this saw pit is, quite frankly, one of the most important industries that you're going to build because everything requires planks mid to late game. Everything. Just about. Planks and then eventually bricks. So the saw pit will handle those requirements. So this is a little icon. The Smokehouse is saying, hey, we can't do any work because there's no meat and no fish. And there we go. Some more immigrants. Nice. Go up to 15. And here it is. Accepting the travelers, fulfilling the requirements. So now we have a population of 21. If we take a look, we've got a lot more people to feed. So what that means to me is we are going to want to maybe get another foraging shack. And I'm going to... So I want to be able to forage the reeds that are over there. But I think more importantly, we're going to want to be able to feed ourselves. Now, the reason why I'm not immediately going to farming is it takes a while for farming to actually start to yield productive results. Right, you got to work the fields for a few years before it can immediately start to feed you. So that's not a very reliable way to feed yourself. So let's see. I'll do a foraging shack. So there's berries and greens around here. There's a lot of greens around here. I guess I could put a foraging shack here for berries and greens. Hawthorn, greens, sumac, so on and so forth. Now there are does down there, but it's pretty close to wolf den, and I think it's only a matter of time until wolves kill those villagers, and that would be a bad idea. So if we want to take a look at how we should be building, what we need to be doing is working towards a market, 8 shelters, and a population of 30. So this is shelter number 7 and shelter number 8. So if we take a look at the market requires us to have a saw pit and a storehouse. Now I've literally just queued up the saw pit here, and then the storehouse itself is right here. So of the storages, the stockyard is for very basic resources, like raw wood, raw stone. Your root cellar is only for food, but it's the best one for food. Your storehouse is a catch-all, but it's not the best for anything. It's can reduce food spoilage, but you should put your food in root cellars, and it can contain stockyard stuff, but because it has better goods available to it, it's better to put things like armor and weapons and things in a stockhouse. Now, as far as stockhouses go, they're also a target for raiders, and as such, I want to put my stockhouse up here on the hill, adjacent to the town center, so if we do get attacked by raiders, I can garrison villagers and have the villagers, much like Age of Empires, the villagers will shoot bows out of the town center and attacking raiders. So raiders are more likely to attack your stockhouses and storage houses. And this is telling me to build a market. So that is going to be my goal. Build a market is the new priority. So the market requires the saw pit and the storehouse, both of which are queued up, and then I'll be able to get a market into our Farthest here. So what I plan to do is, with all of the additional people that have joined, this like labor pool, if you will, is to land clear where the farm eventually will go, so that when it comes time to farming, we don't have to like cut down the trees and harvest the stone that is essentially in the way. So I'm planning to, I'm already working towards farming, even though I'm not actively farming, if that makes sense. Because all of these laborers that just immigrated will allow me to cut down a lot more trees than I was before, as long as I keep them fed. And at the moment, we don't have any immediate food shortages, so that should be fine. Every now and then, when I'm trying to move blueberry bushes, they just don't get moved. So I'll try that again. Cheers, Lightning Star. Okay, there's the saw pit. And we have 2 people working in the saw pit, reducing, of course, from our labor pool. And they're going to be making wood planks for us. Knowledge generated. Let's take a look. So I know that we will be farming soon, and iron shares would help to speed up the farmers working the fields, which would be pretty handy. And that might be my favorite, unless we do cast iron axe blades. No, I'll do iron shares. Because farming is very slow and labor intensive. And reducing the labor cost is going to be pretty important. I'm going to make this foraging shack a higher priority, because it's going to be fairly important that we get that up and running for some additional food. Because at the moment, we don't really have any vegetables or fruit stockpiled. It's almost all proteins. All right. Wow, that forager got built quick. Let's see. So we have berries, greens, and eggs And also, I just discovered a deep coal deposit pretty close to the city, which is really convenient. That won't be relevant for a long time. As I said, deep deposits take a lot of research to be able to set up, and they're also less speed efficient than regular deposits. So if you have a regular deposit adjacent to you, rely on that first. And the game, in its UI, tells you that as much. Although at a slower rate than shallow mines. Alright, food's okay-ish. And we are about to get our storehouse built. We're about half of the resources delivered. Ooh, also, I think that was... No, that was I believe the second infant born. It's a good milestone that people are getting born in here. Now, in order to upgrade our town center, we are going to need 60 wood planks, which is kind of a lot. We've made like 2 so far, for reference, and then 30 people. So if we want 30 people, I'm going to need to expand the housing as well. And being able to feed an expanded population is going to indeed require us to invest in farming soon enough. Okay, here's the storehouse. So in the storehouse, I'm going to click this barrel icon. Essentially, when you... And it won't be for a while. Cooperage is here. It's like a tier 3 technology. But...
Hello!
A cooper can make barrels, and barrels can be used to reduce spoilage for things that would spoil in that storehouse. The thing is, I don't intend to keep my food in the storehouse, so I'm going to click that off. I'm going to keep my food in root cellars instead. So the root cellars will use cooper barrels, but not storehouses. Now, other things like honey or wax can technically spoil in a storehouse, but generally so slow it's almost inconsequential. So the storehouse is where you store usable items, like produced goods, produced materials like flour, ingots, etc., and then raw materials that aren't necessarily food, like grain, although it's not a good place for grain, so I'm going to click that off. Hay, flax, etc. Which also means that if I don't want that stuff in my storage cart, because my storage cart could be targeted by raiders, clicking usable items off for the storage cart and purchasing materials off from the storage cart keeps it from being a juicy target for raiders. So I'm moving my storage cart over near the storehouse and pulling all those goods into the storehouse, because the storehouse can be protected by rallying and garrisoning villagers inside of it. So now my storage cart's only for raw materials. And essentially I can park the storage cart adjacent to work sites where we're cutting down a lot of trees just for ease of delivery. So if I like park my storage cart here where they're cutting a bunch of trees, they can deliver to this storage cart instead of the storage yard over there. All right. At this point, I've met all the requirements for a market. And as you can see, the market has a sphere of influence. And I'm going to put, and you can also see that it will generate income as a result. So I'm going to put my market here, where all the houses fall under the sphere of influence. And in order to build a market, we need 50 wood planks. And then, of course, in order to upgrade our Yodaville, we need 60 wood planks. So that's 110 wood planks. So most of my labor pool should be cutting down trees, turning those trees into wood planks, and then preparing those wood planks for... you know, for construction projects. All right, the other thing I would like to do is to build a few more houses. Honey spoils in the game, suspension of disbelief. I don't know how fast it spoils, but I know some non-foods spoil. With that said, medicinal roots, herbs, and honey can be in the root cellar. So I'm going to turn those off in the storehouse. Anything that can be in the root cellar should be. Thanks for reminding me on that. And now we have all the stone delivered, so it's just some wood planks for the market. Hey, Zen. Can you get salt to make things last longer? No, but there's other ways to make things last longer. There is glassware where you can make root vegetable and fruit preserves. And also smoked meats, and so there's a bunch of different ways to preserve foods, but not salt isn't one of them. So a reminder, we need at least 8 shelters to be able to upgrade our Yodaville, and we now have 10, which is plenty of room to encourage birth rates and immigration. One thing I would advise is to not let your population grow beyond your feeding them means. That would be important not to do. I'm also going to hijack Chloe here to do some very careful exploration. There are exploration flags that you can set. I tend not to use them because villagers will like stupidly wander into instant death type situations if you set exploration flags without some manual oversight. Like a wolf right there. 3 new immigrants, 2 villagers born. So they're taking advantage of the housing availability. So there's 3 pockets of doe out this way to hunt. So I may want a second hunting cabin. So let's go ahead and do that. Food production, hunting cabin. It's too steep there, so I'll build one here. Run that road out a little bit. Because there's a lot of doe in that area to hunt. If we take a look at the fertility zone, the area that Chloe's exploring now is like some of the most fertile soil that we know of. We've got hazelnut trees, hawthorn bushes. Yeah, there's a lot of more doe, a large herd. A deep clay mine and a salvage site. Salvage sites can be really important in early game. They're basically wrecked, and I don't want to salvage this just yet because it's guarded essentially by wolves and boar. But what they are is they're like wrecked pioneer attempts, if you will. And you can salvage it for a lot of good resources. All right, where did Chloe go? Ah, there she is. Let's keep using her. So I've searched the east half and a little bit to the north, although I'd like to search a little bit more north, but I want to search over here too. Check the, oh, Soya, not you. To check around here, because I would like to start collecting willow bush so that I can make baskets, which will help the gatherers. But I don't want to do that. Oh, yep, boar. I don't want to do that if it's dangerous over there, because we'll get our gatherers killed. Hey, Max, thank you for the resub. Shallow mines run out, deep mines don't. Correct. Now, with that said, shallow mines don't necessarily run out within a reasonable period of time, depending on how much are in them. So some shallow mines have very few... Oh, boar, run away. Have very few resources, like a few hundred, and that's going to run out quickly. The ones that have like 10,000 will not run out quickly. So it really depends dramatically upon the type. Thank you for tuning in to Farthest Frontier 1.0, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, fellow frontiersmen.